Hello everyone, this is Anna with the Potomac Bead Company, and today I'm going to show you how I turned this crystal lace bracelet into a crystal lace pendant. I have a base of crystal lace, and then I have a fringe here on one side, and I have a loop at the top. This is a peyote stitched loop, and my fringe here on the bottom I have created using 15 O's and some of our Potomac crystal faceted rondelles. You're also going to need a variety of colors of faceted check round. I have some smooth and faceted 3 and 4 millimeter check rounds in a variety of colors that I've collected over the past couple months. You can also purchase a tube of variety pack of a bunch of different colors. I have some 11 O's here in white matted Valentine. The 15 O's that I'm going to use today are this sparkle honey lined crystal, and then I have a tube of my Potomac crystal rondelles in crystal copper. The tools that I need are my needle and thread, and I use a size 10 needle, and I have my Beadle on Wildfire in .008, and I have this frost color because my 11O seed beads have this white base on them. And then always nearby I have super new glue, my little slip-in snips, and I always have a pair of bent or flat nose pliers. To begin the project, I'm going to make my base of crystal lace. To start the crystal lace, I'm going to pick up a check glass, 2 11s, another check glass, 2 11s, a check glass, oops, 2 more 11s, and another check glass. And let these guys fall down to the end. And I do have a stop bead on my thread. So you want to have a line of beads here beginning and ending with a check glass. And if you wanted to add some additional beads to make this project a little bit wider, you can. I'm going to make mine today the same as my sample here. You do want to be careful though that when you're adding to make the bracelet, or I'm sorry, the pendant a little bit wider, you want to keep the beads that you're adding to multiples of 2. So you want to have multiples of 2 sets of check glass. I'm going to pick up 2 more 11s, a check glass, and 2 more 11s. My first line of beads here, I'm going to take my needle and thread, and I'm going to skip this first check glass, and I'm going to bring my needle through my second check glass only. I don't want to go through any of my 11s, just the check glass bead. Give a little pull, so that's nice and tight. And I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to pick up 2 11s, a check glass, and 2 11s. I'm going to skip one of my check glass beads, and I'm going to come through the next check glass, which is also the last bead, or the first bead that I picked up. Give a little tug and flip my project. So your project now should look something like this. This is my first line of beads, and I turned here at the end and picked up some more check glass and 11s coming through every second check glass bead. Going to pick up 2 more 11s, a check glass, and and 2 more 11s. And rounding the corner here, I'm going to skip this first check bead and go through the second check bead that I come to. I'm going to pick up 2 more 11s, another check glass, 2 more 11s, and come through this check glass bead here. I'm going to skip the next check glass and I'm going to go through the second check glass in my line of beads. I'm going to flip my project. I'm going to do the same thing again. 2 11s, pick up a check glass and 2 11s, skip this first check glass and go through that second check glass that I come to. Pick up 2 11s, another check glass, and 2 more 11s. Skip 1 check glass and go through the next check glass that I come to. And flip my project over again. I'm going to continue in this fashion until I have a nice length that I want for my pendant. You can see here, if I flip my project and I lay my project over my original, I've got quite a little ways to go still to make this the same width. Once you get to the desired width, we can continue with adding our fringe and our peyote stitch top. I've now made the crystal lace section of my pendant the length that I want it. My thread is coming out the very bottom of my project, coming out the side, this very bottom corner of my project, coming out an 11-0. I'm going to start making the fringe on this side. Picking up an 11-0, and I'm working away from me, bringing my needle through the next 2 11s. I'm now going to pick up 5 11-0s and working in the same direction, going away from me. I'm going to take my needle through the last 3. So that one that I just picked up and the 2 that were already on my project. Pick up another 11-0, bring your needle through the next 2 11s. I'm going to pick up 4 11s this time, and I'm going to bring my needle through the 11 that was the 5th bead that I picked up in my line of 5, and the 3 that I just ran through that are on the side of my project. So these 2 little loops here are actually going to be sharing one 11 in the center. I'm going to pick up another 11, run through the next 2 beads, pick up another 4 11s, come through that 5th or that 4th 11-0 that I just picked up to do that little loop, and run through the next 3, running up the side of the project. Picking up another 11, going up through 2, making a loop with 4 11s, going through that 4th 11 that was on my little line of 4 there that I made that loop with, and then continuing through those 3 again. And I'm going to continue to do this until I get to the end of the project. I've made loops all the way up the side of the pendant, and I'm now coming out one of these 11 O's that ran all the way down the side of the pendant. I'm going to take my needle and thread through the first 3 beads of one of my outside loops, flip my project, and so now my thread is coming out the 3rd bead in one of those loops on the side. I've put away my 11 O's. I'm not going to need them right now, so I've taken out my 15s and some of my Potomac crystal rondelles. The fringe that I have on my sample here is graduated. So I've started out by picking up 3 15s, and then in the middle here, I believe I have 9 15s. So if you want to count how many little loops you have here and find the center, that'll give you an idea of how many fringe pieces you're going to have on either side, so that if you do graduate and add more 15s as you work towards the center, you'll know when to start graduating back down. To create these fringes, I'm going to start out by picking up 3 15s, one of my Potomac crystal rondelles, and then another 15. I'm going to take my needle and run back through only the rondelle. When I pull my thread tight, this will trap that little 15 right at the base of the rondelle and hold that rondelle on. I'm going to pick up another 3 15s, and I'm going to go through this 11 O here. That is the center bead on my next loop up. So if I count, it is the 1 2 3, the 3rd 11 O, the center one on my next loop up. I'm now going to pick up 4 15s because I think I am going to do that graduated fringe again. And I'm going to pick up another rondelle, pick up a 15, and I'm going to come back through only the rondelle. And remember how many 15s you've picked up, because if you're graduating it and you keep picking up one more, sometimes it's easy to lose track. I'm going to pick up another 4 15s and come through the 3rd and center 11 of my next little loop up. I'm going to pick up 5 15s this time, a rondelle, and a 15, coming back through only the rondelle, picking up another 5 15s, and then coming through the center 11 on that next loop, working up my project. So I'm going to continue the whole length of my project here, adding this graduated fringe along the bottom. And I'm going to count here and find the center, so that when I get to the center, I'm going to start decreasing my fringe again. I've now completed the fringe on the outside of my crystal lace. My thread and needle were coming out the base of this last circle here of 11s through that center 11 O. And now I'm just running my thread up through the side, the short side of my crystal lace on the outside. I've also added some thread. So for those of you who would like a tutorial on adding thread, we also have a tutorial on that in case you need a refresher or just some tips on how to do that. Now occasionally your needle doesn't want to go through one of the beads. That is why I always have one of my bent or flat nose pliers around. These pliers will help you get a good grip on the needle, a lot better than your fingers, and you can just pull that needle and thread through. Now that I've got my thread to the other side of my project, I'm going to do something very similar to what I did on the base by picking up an 11 and then running back through the next two 11s, working up my project away from me again. This time though, I don't need to add any fringe, so all I'm doing is picking up an 11 and running through the next two 11s, working away from me up the side of my project. And this is just going to create a nice tight line of 11s to sort of frame and finish the look of that edge. I've now finished adding one 11 in between every two 11s, running up the side opposite of my fringe. I'm going to turn my project here so that my pendant is facing the correct way, and I've got my thread coming out the right here. Now I need to get my needle and thread coming out an 11-0 here at the top, about 10 beads or so in from either side of my project. I cannot simply take my needle and thread and run back through these beads, or I'm going to just undo all the work that I just did in adding those 11-0s. So I'm going to take a little shortcut here. If you want to, you can take your needle and thread and run it down the outside border of beads that you have running around your pendant, so that you're coming down the side, down the bottom, up the side again, and then come through about 10 beads or so. I'm going to do a little shortcut, so if you would prefer to cheat like I am, you can do that as well. Going to come through one of my check glass and two 11s, working down the side of the project. And now what I'm going to do is take my needle and thread, move one row in, and come up through an 11 and a check glass. So now my thread is coming out the top of that second check glass from the outside. Take my needle, and I'm going to head towards the center of the project with my needle, coming through some of those 11s at the top. Now you can decide how wide you want your loop of peyote stitch to be. I'm going to count probably about 10 11-0s in. And however much space you leave open here at the end is you're going to keep on this opposite side too. So you do want to count those beads to make sure that after you've done your peyote stitch, you don't make it too long or too short. Now I'm going to start my peyote stitch running up the side of the pendant. For the peyote, I'm just going to pick up a 111. I'm going to skip 111 after the bead that my thread is coming out and go through the next bead, working up the side. And there are lots of tutorials using peyote stitch, so if you need a refresher or if you've not done peyote stitch before, you can watch one of those tutorials in addition to this one. Going to pick up another 11, skip the bead right after the bead that my thread is coming out of, go through the next bead, so I'm picking up an 11 and then bringing my needle through the second bead. So I'm picking up 11 and then skipping one bead and bringing my thread through the next bead. I've now done my first line of peyote stitch in the center of this top side of my pendant. Now I'm going to flip my project and work up the other direction with my peyote. Picking up an 11, and I'm going to go through one of those beads that I just added, and you're going to know which ones they are because they're going to be sticking up above the rest of your line of 11s. I'm going to pick up another 11, come through that next 11 that I added on the previous row that's sticking up. Pick up another and run through. I'm now going to work on this peyote stitch until I've got it at least half an inch to 3/4 of an inch out from the side of my project, because I want it to be long enough that I can then loop it around, like you can see here, and attach to the back and leave a large enough loop on the inside there to run a cord through. I now have a rectangle of peyote stitch long enough to make a tube with an inner diameter wide enough to accommodate whatever cord I'm going to hang my pendant on. If you don't already have a cord picked out, I would do so before finishing so that you have some way to gauge how large that hole needs to be. At the very top of my peyote, I have this last line of 11s that I added, and these are going to look like little teeth sticking up. And then at the base here, I need to find the teeth from the first row. And those teeth are going to be the very first line of 11s that I picked up and added to my base here. My border running around this crystal lace. And I want to make sure that the teeth on the top and the teeth on the bottom here are offset. So I want them to be in different rows. If they're not, all you need to do is add another row of peyote stitch at the top, and that'll take care of it. Going to turn the project in on itself, and for me it's going to be easier to work at on the side here with my project turned to the side. Going to take my needle and thread, and coming out one of these sunken beads here, top right, I'm going to come through the first tooth at the base of the peyote. I'm going to next come through one of the teeth at the top of my rectangle, and then travel through the next tooth from the base. And I'm going to continue up here through the top, and I'm going only through the teeth, or the very first and last row of peyote that I added. And these should fit right into each other like teeth in a zipper. So you can see here on the side. Give it a nice pull and make that nice and tight. And I'm going to continue here. You want to be careful not to run your needle through any of the 11s that were part of the border of your crystal lace. It's very easy to do because you've got quite a lot of 11s here that look like they're all kind of lined up here at the bottom, and it's easy to go through the wrong one. When you've seamed the whole bottom of your tube, you'll have your needle and thread sticking out one side, and the last thing you need to do is just tie off your thread. To do this, the technique that I'm going to use is just by taking my needle and thread and travel up through this outside line of 11s in my peyote. And I have a tiny little tail here, so I'm not going to go very far, but I'm just going to go back and forth and zigzag up the side here and add a knot in my thread here. And all I'm doing is just taking my thread under the thread that's already there and taking my needle through that loop, giving a little tug to make sure that that's a really tight knot, and travel through my project a little bit more. I'm going to take my needle through a few of these beads headed towards the middle of my peyote before I cut off the end of my thread. This is a little habit that I picked up because I'm also a knitter, and so when I knit, I like to tuck the ends of my yarn in the middle of the project so that I don't have a piece of string or yarn, or in this case thread, poking out the end. This way it kind of hides itself in the middle of the project. And then I'm just going to snip that thread, and I'll add some glue on there, some super new glue, and then that will be the very end. Hope you guys have fun making the project. I had a lot of fun showing you how to do this crystal lace pendant, and hope you guys have fun and have fun wearing it. Thanks for watching.